This is the Building Automation Monthly Podcast with Phil Zito, episode 129. Hey folks, Phil Zito here, and welcome to episode 129 of the Building Automation Monthly Podcast. In this episode, we are going to be finalizing this four-part series we've been doing on how to optimally use your building automation system as part of your facility. So up to this point, we've went through three of the four steps. We've talked about how to analyze your existing use of your building automation system. We've talked through getting back to the basics and setting up your process. Now, if you're tuning in right now, you may be wondering why all this matters. You haven't been following along with the series so far, so let's just do a really quick recap. Essentially, one of the biggest challenges facing facility leaders, and we've talked to quite a few over the past couple weeks, is finding not only qualified operators to utilize a building automation system, but then once they find those qualified operators, how do they know what to instruct them in doing? How do they know how to set up their processes so that their processes best utilize the building automation system? And when you're wondering what process, it could be any process, but the majority of the processes we're focusing on are triage processes, which means you get a customer complaint, a tenant complaint, you have an issue within your facility. How do you go and, one, recognize that you have an issue, and then how do you go and dispatch and resolve that issue? So that's one process. The other process, as we're going to discuss today, is still kind of triage, but we're focused on optimization, because at the end of the day, facility management, facility operations is all about maintaining a facility so that it is not interfering with the core mission of the organization that occupies that facility. So if you're a hospital, you want that healing environment. If you want an educational environment. If you're commercial real estate, you want a environment in which the tenants basically want to be there and can conduct business as optimally as possible. Now, in an ideal world, nothing would ever break. Everything would be perfect. It would be 72 degrees all year round everywhere, and everyone would rejoice. But we don't live in an ideal world. We don't live in that fantasy land. However, what we can do, and what we're going to discuss in this episode, is we can optimize our processes to make sure that we can go and best serve the occupants who are within the building. And if you are a system integrator or a controls contractor or supplier or an engineer and you're wondering, what the heck does any of this have to do with BAS? Why should I care? You should definitely care, because this is where you can learn this information and become a guiding, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically a guide to your owner-operators and really become their ally, because so many of us are guilty of just selling our controls and doing drive-by installs where we install the project and we're so busy with so much backlog that we just move on to the next one. Here you're gaining some skills and knowledge that give you the opportunity to take your service to the next level. So come at this episode with that in mind. All right, with all of that kind of pre-positioning in place, let's dive into this episode. So what is optimization? Well, if you go and you Google the word optimization, it says the action of making the best or most effective use of a situation or resource. All right, that's just freaking useless. So, what resource? What resource do we want to optimize? If I told you I'm going to optimize your building automation system, what does that even mean? You got all these folks on LinkedIn and thinking use our solution to optimize your building automation system. Optimize what? Optimize my ability to get to a problem, optimize my ability to control to a sequence. What resource, what skill are you optimizing? And, therein lies the challenge. We talk all the time about building optimization. It used to be energy efficiency. There still is kind of the IoT buzzword bingo going on out there, but now we're talking about building optimization. That is a big phrase out there in the market. And you got to ask yourself, what really needs to be optimized? Is it the building? What is a optimized building anyways? Or maybe it's the processes. Maybe our processes themselves need to be optimized, or maybe it's just the systems. Maybe we are running a air handler with 1950 sequences and we haven't thought about going and using VSDs and using economizer resets and actually having process loops. We're still running things with a manual crank. I mean, I know that's kind of an extreme example, but maybe all we have to optimize are our systems. And so when asked what optimization meant, and when I'm saying when asked, we went and asked several of our owner customers who work in everything from hospitals to commercial real estate to higher education. So we've got a broad spectrum of customers, and we talked to them and asked them, what does optimization mean to you? And while we got a lot of answers, we got 4 kind of reoccurring themes. And what I've done is I've organized these themes into an order of precedence. Basically, if you do 1, then you can likely hit 2. And if you do 2, then you can to them likely hit 3. It'll make sense in just a second. But the benefits of optimization, as seen by these facility leaders, was reduced time to resolution. At the end of the day, we want to keep the environment contributing to the mission of the organization occupying that environment, so we want to resolve any issues as fast as possible. If we do that, well, then we're probably doing number 2, which is staff efficiency. We want to optimize our staff, make sure they are efficient. And if we are reducing time to resolution and we've got efficient staff, then we probably have number 3, which is system uptime. And if you've got systems that are up, well, then you're going to go into number 4 and you're going to have issue avoidance. I think this bears repeating because each one of these builds upon one another. So you get this reduced time to resolution, right? You find the issue faster and you resolve the issue faster. And we'll talk through multiple different ways you can do that through an optimized system. There's things like analytics, there's things like basic BAS functionality that will help you do this. The end result, though, if you have less time working on an issue, that means your staff's more efficient. They can spend more time on maintenance. They can spend more time on just things in general that need to be done, which then results in system uptime. You're going to have a greater uptime if your staff is resolving issues faster and if they're able to do more proactive maintenance, preemptive maintenance, which system uptime then leads to issue avoidance. If the system's up, running, and at design conditions, then the likelihood of you getting a trouble call is very slim, or at least greatly reduced. Now here's the thing. This was actually quite interesting, was that these facility leaders believed optimization could work. They talked glowingly about the capabilities of optimization. And when I say optimization, I'm so tempted to think of analytics personally, but that is not optimization. Optimization, as I mentioned, could be a process. It could be sequencing. It could be a variety of things. So whatever biases you have towards the word optimization, I just ask you to put those aside till the rest of the episode is over. But these facility leaders, they said optimization could work for their organization. Over 72% of them said it wouldn't work in their facilities, though. They saw that optimization could work. They fully well believed that it could work, but it wouldn't work for them. And we see this time and time again. We have students who come into our information technology training program, and they say, sure, other folks can learn IT, but we can't learn IT, or I can't learn IT. And it's very much a limiting belief. And as a instructor as well as the CEO of a training company, I get to see both sides of the fence. And quite often there is really an to the underlying issue towards why folks believe things won't work for them. So what are those barriers to optimization? And this may feel drawn out. You may be at this point going, man, Phil, get to the solution. I don't know about you, but I'm very solution oriented. I immediately go there. It annoys the crap out of folks because I've been known to interrupt folks and be like, okay, but what should we do? How can we do this? And folks, some folks take a little bit more time than I have patience for, which is my issue and not theirs. But with that being said, there are barriers. Okay? And we need to understand those barriers because you can have all the processes in the world, but if you don't deal with these underlying barriers, they'll never get adopted. I remember was working with an analytics solution, and we went to a building in side of I think it'd be considered the Midwest United States. The building literally had a 4x4 foot hole in the side of the building on the fourth floor, I think it was. And the manager said, man, we could really optimize our systems. We could really benefit by knowing that our systems are so poorly performing. But we can buy 4 new fan coils for the price of your analytics solution. I said, surely that is not the real issue. And over dinner was talking and said, no, that's not the real issue. Our staff's afraid that this solution is going to replace them. So there's usually an issue behind the issue. Here's the 4 barriers we heard. First is the fear of the unknown. Change is scary. One of the biggest challenges we face as an organization is getting folks to change. They know they need to train their people. They know their folks aren't executing as much as they could. They know they've got backlog that isn't being executed, but it's worked for them so far. Sure, they've got a couple $1 million in backlog that isn't being executed. Sure, their margin percentage is not where they want it to be, but it's working okay. And their fear is that what could happen could be worse than where they're at right now. Now, that's not true. We've seen time and time again where folks who work with us, their profit margins raise up, their time to execution goes down, and they're able to work through their backlog. But it's really hard when all you've known is what you've known to see something different. So that fear of the unknown is an extremely common issue. And it's something that these facility leaders were really concerned about. There's this perceived cost of change. And while it's definitely a financial cost that people are concerned about, we're going to have to upgrade our systems, we're going to have to put analytics in, we're going to have to change processes, hire more people, There's also a political and relational cost that cannot be misrepresented or misappreciated. Maybe that's the word. I'm not sure. Underappreciated. That's the word I'm looking for. We really have to appreciate the political and relational costs of change for folks we're working with. Quite often we go and we say, hey, just upgrade, put the system in, go and get our analytics solution. Optimize your processes, do retro commissioning so that the whole world can see you haven't been maintaining your facility for the past 20 years. I mean, really think about it from the person's perspective who has been in a facility for 30 years. They've done the best they can, and now we're going to put this solution in that's going to expose everything. There is a political cost. Let me take a sip of water real quick here. I just got off of a webinar and it, dries your throat out. Excuse me. I'm not going to edit that out, so you'll just have to forgive me on that. Anyways, though, as I mentioned, there is a political and a relational cost that is quite often not appreciated when it comes to change. So we need to be cognizant of those. Overwhelm. Okay, overwhelm is a huge issue that we also need to be cognizant of. Whenever something begins to be overwhelming, which in today's day and age, it's quite easy to be overwhelmed, we shut down. Well, the whole thought process of optimizing is overwhelming. Even to an expert like myself, who does this all the time, who's worked with tons of clients on doing this, who has worked on some of the most complex projects in the world, I openly admit that optimizing a process is very stressful, but the end result is very positive. So you need to find a way to break it out into chunks so that you don't overwhelm folks. And finally, unclear consensus on what optimized is and why it even matters. If I tell you we're going to optimize your building, and then you tell someone you're going to optimize the building, I guarantee you the word optimize means 2 different things to you and that other person. So getting consensus on what optimized is, why it matters, and how it's going to be measured, that's extremely important. Now, I'm not here to sell you on optimization. I have no dog in the fight. We rep no product here at Building Automation Monthly. All we do is provide training to organizations who want to increase their productivity and proficiency at building automation. That's what we do. That's what we're known for. That's what we're the best at. However, I will tell you that optimization, there are processes you can use. There are tools you're going to use. And through the rest of this episode, that is what we're going to dive in. So for those of you who are like me, who are get to the point people, this is the part you really want to pay attention to. All right. That being said, let's first start talking through the tools, and then we will move through the processes associated with each tool. So when it comes to tools for optimization, there's really 4 categories. I like to call them BAS, so your building automation system, your analytics solution, your good old engineering, as I like to call it, and integrated systems. So building automation systems, you're really going to want to focus in on 2 things: usability optimization and extensibility optimization. Don't worry if what I say to you in this next couple minutes is not 100% clear. When we dive through the processes associated with these tools, it's going to become immensely clear. So usability optimization, we're talking about using the system. Remember, we want to resolve issues as fast as possible. We need to use the system to do that. We also want to extend the capabilities of the system to enhance our ability to make it usable. That's why extensibility comes after usability. Because there's a base level of usability, and then there's an extended level of usability of the building automation system. Same with analytics. From an analytical perspective, we have regressive optimization, where we look at what's happened in the past, and it gives us kind of key indicators of what's performing and what's not. And then we have predictive optimization. These are these predictive or just-in-time or real-time analytics that will tell you exactly what's going on, and will even fix it for you, or so they say. I've yet to see a solution that truly does that in a way where I would be willing to hand over the keys to my BAS and let them drive. That being said, there are solutions that are getting closer to that. Then there's good old engineering, retro commissioning, sequence optimization. These are 2 things that, quite honestly, retro commissioning and sequence optimization, that is a bigger barrier to overcome than even going and getting your BAS usable and extensible. And in some cases, even bigger than analytics, because retro commissioning means we're pulling back the curtains and we're really looking at what's going on and we're making some changes. And then you have integrated systems. That's where the only thing I'm going to focus in that, and I mean, that was the old world I used to play in back at JCI, was integrating all the systems together back before I started my own business. I was integrating everything from healthcare, lighting, access control, AV, video surveillance, BAS, you name it, I integrated it or made it talk or helped other people make it talk. And there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with that. But the one we're going to focus in on is workflow optimization, and that is primarily utilizing some form of either asset management or work order management software. So how do we do these things? How do we optimize? Well, for the BAS optimization, as I mentioned, we have usability and extensibility. So usability, we want to do a use analysis. Oh my gosh, doesn't that just, I don't know about you, but I wake up every morning and I think to myself, I would love to do a use analysis. That just sounds like fun. No, it really doesn't. But what it entails is you actually watching your people use the building automation system. And when I say you, it's actually usually a BAS subcontractor acting on your behalf, watching them use it, understanding how they use it, having enough expertise to understand, man, it's taking them 20 clicks just to change a set point. We could probably narrow that down to 4 clicks. Divide that across the course of a year, and we could save a couple man days. That's what I'm talking about right there. If they can't even get to the point, they being your operators, then how in the world do you expect to decrease your time to resolution? How do you expect to achieve that? You achieve that by doing a use analysis and understanding what needs to be there for usability to happen. Then once you have that solid and in place and it's good and it works, only then do you go into extensibility. This is where we start to look at alarm optimization, trend optimization, and report scheduling. So alarm optimization, we're going to look at critical systems. We're going to do a critical system analysis. We're going to essentially understand what systems are critical to us being able to go and run our business. Once we know that, then we're going to set up a schema for alarm prioritization and escalation. I know I'm talking about this at about the 30,000 foot level. I'm not giving you step-by-step how to do it. This is where you're going to engage a competent professional to work alongside you to go and execute these changes. This is stuff we teach our students how to do in our courses. However, this is not something that I could do justice in a 30-minute podcast. Because quite honestly, this is a visual conversation that you have to have in order to execute these tasks. I'll tell you the purpose behind the task. I'll tell you the reason behind the task. I'll even tell you kind of the order and priority behind the tasks. But in order to execute these tasks, that is a kind of direct I don't want to even say in person, but just it's more of a hands-on conversation. Okay. So, as I mentioned, alarm analysis, critical system analysis, alarm prioritization, and escalation processes. From there, we move into trend optimization. We do a data survey. We understand what points do we actually need data from in order to optimize our systems. I'm going to take another sip of water. Forgive me here. Man, goodness gracious, my throat is dry. So, as I mentioned, we are going to go and do a data survey. Then we are going to go and figure out what reports and trend graphs we want to create, and we're going to establish them, and we are going to schedule our reports. Common reports are, for example, zone temperature reports, override reports, out of service reports. These are kind of reports that you can have so that you don't have these issues start to build up. Because if everything's overridden and out of service, you might as well not have a building automation system. Okay, so that's bucket number 1. Yeah, man, if your brain's not already feeling cooked, well, we're about to turn up the heat just a little bit. So from there, we move into analytics. And analytics, we're going to focus on kind of 2 buckets. Now, I really do not recommend moving on to analytics until you've done step 3, which was establishing your facility process. Excuse me, sorry about that. And step 4, which we're doing right now, your optimization process, and you've made your BAS usable and you've extended it to the maximum of its capabilities. After all, you bought this system. It's a building automation system. It's not a building in hand system. It's not an HOA system, which is a hand-off auto. It's just basically a hand or auto switch for equipment. This is a building automation system. Let it do what you paid a lot of money for. All right. But then you want to take it to the next level. You want to be able to see issues. Maybe you've got a large campus. Maybe you've got complex systems and you've got 40 points on a trend graph and it's really hard to even process more than 5 data points, at least according to studies. So you've got 40 points. Good luck with that. And you can kind of hedge against that by utilizing analytics. This is where analytics really shines. Being able to go and look at your system performance and then regress it, meaning you're able to go and say, hey, at this time, let's account for temperature, let's account for occupancy, and let's see how the system really performed. Then give you a really good snapshot of how systems are performing, and it can also show signs of system degradation. From there, you can take the next leap and move to predictive optimization. I don't necessarily know about real-time optimization. I mean, quite honestly, as Andy McMillan, I believe, on today's webinar, or depending on when you're listening to this, a webinar that I was on, he's the president of BACnet, he was talking about, and very astutely said, well, process loops in the BAS world, I mean, they may be at their fastest are a couple minutes. Process loop being you've got something you're trying to control, you change something. So let's say pressure. Pressure is a pretty fast acting loop. You go and you change pressure, set point, and then the fan increases and the pressure increases. even that is not nanosecond fast. So just-in-time analytics, the value of them are debatable at best. But predictive analytics, looking at trends and predicting, hey, this system might fail because at this outdoor air temperature with this damper position and this valve position, you're at this discharge air, but in the past you are at this one, that shows that your system is degrading. That actually can be quite useful on a large scale. So that is another way you can optimize. From there, we can move into engineering and retro commissioning and sequence optimization. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, just simply due to the fact that retro commissioning and sequence of operation efficiency is a huge topic. It's one that I think I'm feeling like we're going to go and get someone who actually all they ever do is retro commissioning, and we're going to bring them on the podcast and interview them. That's what I'm feeling like we should do. And I'll talk with our team about getting someone on to do that. That being said, retro commissioning, you're basically making sure everything works, how it was designed, and sequence optimization, you're saying, this design could be better, we're going to optimize it. Those are two ways that you can continue to optimize your facilities. Once again, assuming you have the processes in place to run your facilities properly, otherwise you go and do retro commissioning or you do sequence optimization and everything's still broken because you're not properly operating your facility. And finally, from there, we move into integrated systems, and this is kind of the holy grail. This is where you take your building automation system, your workflow process that we developed in the previous episode 128, and we put it all together. You have an issue come into your triage. You handle that issue. You hand it off. That issue is properly logged. It's resolved. It goes maybe even into an analytics solution that then takes note of it and watches that system for degradation and makes predictive analysis and then reschedules maintenance based on that. I know this seems kind of 2001 Space Odyssey, advanced kind of far-fetched stuff, but there are facilities that do this, and they do it quite well and quite efficiently, and it works magically. Now, I know all of that sounds kind of real hypey, but it can be done, and if you have a specification, if you have a design standard, you can actually make sure most of this stuff works. It's just getting in front of it. And once again, we go back to overwhelm and people just being kind of tunnel focused. It's really hard when you're in the thick of it to step out and make proactive decisions. I get that. That's why folks use consultants. That's why folks call us and ask us to advise them, because when you're on the outside looking in, it is extremely difficult to go and make those decisions, and I get that. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this 4-part series. I really hope that you got a ton out of this 4-part series. I would love personally to hear from you. My email is phil.zito@buildingautomationmonthly.com, or you can just leave a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. This is something we've been considering doing. We've got a lot of owner customers who have asked us for this kind of information. And normally we focus on sales and operations processes, but this is something that is near and dear to my heart, having started in the service world. And it's something that we're hearing from a lot of our customers is sorely needed. So if this is something you found tremendous value from, then leave a comment or shoot me an email. I would love to hear from you. With that being said, everything we've discussed today can be found at buildingautomationmonthly.com/129. Once again, that is buildingautomationmonthly.com/129. And if you go to buildingautomationmonthly.com, you will see that we have access to our past podcast episodes, a couple free online courses that you can attend. I really encourage you to check those out. And we also have paid courses that are the best in the industry. There's a reason why we are the fastest growing online BAS training company in the world, and that is because our courses address the key tasks that contribute to profitability, proficiency, and productivity of companies' employees. So if you're looking to grow your team, you have backlog that you're not able to execute, your profit margin isn't where you want it to be, maybe you're a facility operator and you're struggling with deferred maintenance, everything's in hand, you got overrides out the wazoo, and you're paying crazy costs in your service fees because of your inability to keep up with your facility operation, then reach out to us. We have helped a lot of corporate clients to train up their staff, to develop their teams, and we would love to work with you. You can simply reach out to us at sales@buildingautomationmonthly.com, or you can just reach out to me directly at phil.zito@buildingautomationmonthly.com. Either one will work. We would love to understand the issues you're facing, and who knows, maybe we can help you with them. We've helped a lot of people so far. With that being said, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I love the fact that you all tune in every week. You all are awesome. It's a blessing, belief, to be able to serve you both through this podcast as well as through our business. Thank you so much on behalf of the Building Automation Monthly team. Can't wait to talk to you again next week. Take care.